At that time, a very wise judge named Samuel governed the nation of Israel, but the people wanted a king, such as the neighboring countries had. So Samuel called together all the tribes, and in the presence of them all he anointed Saul's head with oil, saying,
"You are the one whom God has chosen to reign over Israel."
Some time after that, Nahash, the leader of the Ammonites, besieged the town of Jabesh in Gilead. The inhabitants were terrified, and they made the following proposition.
"If you will make a treaty with us, we will be your servants.
But on one condition. Every one of you will have his right eye cast out, so that there may be perpetual shame on Israel."
When Saul heard what Nahash had said, he was filled with anger. He gathered together 330,000 men and engaged the Ammonites in battle, wiping them out completely. On several occasions, the Philistines launched their armies against Israel, but God was with his people, and on each occasion the enemy was beaten. Saul, however, had twice committed great sins against the Lord, and Samuel warned him,
"You have sinned against God by rejecting his word. God is now rejecting you as king."
Obeying the word of the Lord, Samuel went to Jerusalem. There he met a young shepherd called David, who used to play a harp as he watched over his sheep. God said to Samuel,
"Anoint him, for this is the one I have chosen."
And so the grace of God came upon David, and was withdrawn from Saul. But Saul was so troubled in his mind that a player of the harp was sent for to calm him. David came, and his music soothed Saul, who found friendship with him and made him his armor-bearer. Sometime afterwards, the Philistines reassembled their armies between Shokoch and Azekah. Saul was preparing to engage them in battle when the enemy ranks parted, and a soldier named Goliath came forward. He was a giant of a man, and his armor was terrifyingly heavy. He challenged the Israelites.
"Choose one of your men to come and fight with me. If he conquers me, the Philistines will be your slaves. But if I win, you will be our slaves."
Saul and his soldiers were filled with fear, for none of them dared face Goliath. But David went forward, armed only with his stick and his sling and a few small pebbles. The giant mocked at him.
"Ha ha 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 ha! Am I a dog that you come out against me with a stick?
You come out against me with a sword, a lance, and a javelin. And I come out against you in the name of the Lord God of Israel. I shall conquer you."
Throwing down his stick, David took one of his pebbles, fitted it into his sling, and hurled it against the giant. Goliath was struck in the middle of the forehead, and he crashed to the ground like a mighty tree. Whereupon David ran forward and cut off his head. When Saul died, David reigned over Israel. He was a very great king, always obedient to God's word. He defeated the Philistines in battle, made the Jebusites leave Jerusalem, and brought the Ark of the Covenant into the city. He composed a large number of wonderful psalms, but he tarnished his glory by sending one of his warriors, Uriah, to his death, because he wanted to marry Bathsheba, Uriah's wife. The prophet Nathan, sent by God, came to David and said to him,
"Because you have sinned, misfortunes will rain upon you."
And it was so. First of all, David lost the son that Bathsheba had given him. Then Absalom, his other son, stirred up a revolt against his father, and David had to flee Jerusalem in the middle of the night. When he had drawn up his troops to face those of his son, he said to them,
Out of respect for me, be gentle with Absalom.
The two armies met in the forest of Ephraim. David's army defeated Absalom's, and more than 20,000 men met their deaths. Absalom fled, mounted on a mule, and as he was passing through a very thick part of the forest, his long hair caught in the branches of an oak tree, and he hung there in between heaven and earth. A soldier saw him, and he took the news back to Joab, one of David's captains. Joab said immediately,
Why didn't you kill him? I would gladly have given you 10 shekels of silver, and a girdle.
Even if I were to receive 1,000 shekels of silver, I would not touch the king's son. And I advise you not to touch him either.
I'm not going to waste my time here listening to you.
Going against David's orders, Joab took his javelin and pierced Absalom's heart. When David learnt of the death of his son, he was stricken with grief. He covered his face and cried out,
Oh, my son Absalom! My son Absalom! Would God I had died for thee! Oh, Absalom, my son, my son!
Later, feeling that his end was near, David summoned his son Solomon and said to him,
I shall die very soon. Be strong. Obey God faithfully, observing his word and his commandments, such as they are written in the law of Moses.
Having thus spoken, David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city he had created, the city of David. Solomon, the new king, went to Gilson to offer burnt sacrifice to the Lord. And one night, while he was sleeping, God appeared to him and said,
Ask whatever you may desire, and I will give it to you.
I am but a young man. Give me enough wisdom to be able to distinguish good from evil.
I will grant your wish, and if you obey my commandments, you will enjoy a very long life.
When he awoke, Solomon realized he had been dreaming, but there was now wisdom in his heart. One day, he had to deliver judgment when two women were involved in a dispute over a child.
Your Majesty, I live in the same house as that woman, and each of us has a baby 3 days old. Last night, her baby died. While I was asleep, she took my son and put her dead son in his place.
It is my son who is alive. Yours is the dead baby.
Which of you is speaking the truth?
I am.
We shall see.
Bring me a sword.
When the sword had been brought, Solomon ordered,
Cut the living child in two. Give one half to each of the women.
No, Your Majesty, I beseech you. Give her the living child, but do not kill him.
Give the living child to this woman, for she is his mother.
When it became known how Solomon had given judgment in this matter, everyone in Israel realized that divine wisdom had descended upon him. And furthermore, men from distant countries came to ask for his advice. To thank God, Solomon built a wonderful temple at Jerusalem, a temple made of gold, silver, and rare woods. When he died, the people said to Rehoboam, his son,
Your father made our yoke a heavy one to bear. Lighten it, and we will serve you.
But Rehoboam consulted the elders and asked them,
What do you advise me to reply?
If you are just to your people, and if you speak to them with goodness in your heart, they will always serve you.
Ignoring the advice of the elders, Rehoboam turned for advice to the young men who had grown up with him.
What must I reply to the people who come to me and say, Lighten the yoke that your father imposed on us?
You must reply, I will make your burden an even heavier one to bear.
And Rehoboam said to the Israelites,
My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions.
Some of the tribes then revolted and went to Shechem, where they took for their king Jeroboam, who had been one of Solomon's captains. Rehoboam reigned over only the few tribes who lived in the towns in Judah, and from that time onwards, Palestine was divided into two kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. To prevent his people from returning to the house of David, Jeroboam had two altars constructed at Bethel and at Dan, where he placed idols in the form of golden calves, which the Israelites worshipped. One day, while Jeroboam was preparing to offer a sacrifice, a man of God came up to him and said,
"The altar will split, and the coals that are on it will be scattered."
Jeroboam was exceedingly angry, and pointing at the man, he shouted,
"Seize him!"
But Jeroboam's hand dried up and his arms stiffened. Then the altar split, scattering the coals just as the man of God had foretold. Jeroboam and his successors continued to do things which displeased God. And Ahab, king of the Israelites, scorning the God of his fathers, built a temple to the god Baal, whom he began to worship. A prophet called Elijah, prompted by the Almighty, said to Ahab,
"You have offended the Lord. Just as it is true that the God of Israel is a living God, so is it true that there will be no dew or rain in this land, save at my command."
The drought lasted 3 years, bringing great famine with it. Then God said to Elijah,
Go and present yourself to King Ahab, and I will cause rain to fall upon the earth.
When Ahab saw Elijah, he cried out,
Are you the one that has caused all the trouble in Israel?
You abandoned God to worship Baal. Assemble all the people of Israel around me on Mount Carmel. Bring also the 50 prophets of Baal, as well as the 400 prophets of Astarte.
When all were assembled, Elijah addressed them as follows.
How long will you halt between two opinions? If the Lord is your God, follow him. If Baal is your God, follow him.
At Elijah's command, 2 bulls were sacrificed and placed on 2 piles of wood. Then Elijah said,
Call upon your God to light your altar. I will call upon the God of my fathers. The God who sends fire will be the true God.
It was in vain that the prophets of Baal begged their God to send fire. Then Elijah spoke to the Lord, and the flames licked his altar. In the face of this miracle, the people cried out,
His God is the true God!
The true God!
His God is the true God!
Then Elijah announced that rain would fall. Clouds darkened the horizon, and the rain soaked into the parched earth. But Jezebel, the wife of King Ahab, tried to have Elijah murdered, so the prophet had to hide in the desert, and he stayed there for 40 days. Later, while he was journeying with his friend Elisha, a chariot of fire drawn by 2 flaming horses separated them from each other. And Elijah was taken up by a whirlwind into heaven. While Jeroboam II was king, God said to Jonah, son of Amittai,
Go to Nineveh and preach against its inhabitants, for I know of their wickedness.
But Jonah was extremely frightened, and ignoring the Lord's command, he boarded a boat which was going to Tarsus. Shortly afterwards, a violent storm broke out, threatening to swamp the vessel, and the sailors begged their God to help them. But Jonah was asleep below deck, and when the captain of the boat found him, he woke him and said to him,
Why are you asleep? Call upon your God. Perhaps he will protect us, and we will not perish.
The sailors cast lots to find out who was responsible for the storm, and it was found that Jonah was the one. So they then said to him,
Tell us why this misfortune has come upon us. Where do you come from? What is your people?
I am a Hebrew. My God is the one that created the heaven and the earth.
Why have you fled far from the face of your God? How can we appease his anger?
Throw me into the sea, for it is because of me that this storm has arisen.
So to calm the fury of the storm, the sailors cast Jonah into the sea. The waves closed in upon Jonah, And God sent from the depths a whale, which swallowed him up. For 3 days and 3 nights he stayed in the monster's belly, but as he had repented of his sins, God caused the whale to cast him onto a beach. He went straight to Nineveh, and the inhabitants, marveling at his words, gave up their evil ways to return into the way of the Lord. For many years, the kings of Judah and of Israel were unfaithful to God. And then the Spirit of the Lord visited the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah said to the people of Israel,
Nation of sinners, nation of wicked men, you have abandoned God. You have outraged the guardian of Israel, and you have withdrawn yourselves from him. Where can you be struck after this if you continue your revolt? For the whole head is ill, the heart is wilting. There is nothing healthy from the head to the feet. Your country is a desert. Your towns are consumed by fire, and foreigners eat up your land. God has had enough of your burnt sacrifices. When you stretch up your hands, he hides his face to avoid seeing you. When you multiply your prayers, he does not listen to you. Your hands are full of blood. Wash them, purify them, cease to do evil. Uphold the oppressed, bring help to the orphaned, and defend the widowed. Then come to God. If you obey, you will eat the best produce of your soil. But if you rebel, you will be devoured by the sword.
Then the prophet announced the fall of Babylon and foretold the coming of the Messiah.
Listen, house of David. A virgin will give birth to a son, a man of sorrows and made to suffer pain. He will be scorned by everyone. He will bear the weight of our sins. He will be pierced because of them. And by his wounds we shall be healed. He will be tortured and he will be humiliated. He will be struck and he will not complain. It will please God to break him with suffering, and he will offer his life as a sacrifice for sin. Because he will have given his body unto death, because he will have been numbered amongst criminals, and because he will have borne the sins of many men, he will intercede to God on behalf of sinners.
There lived in the reign of Sennacherib a good and pious man named Tobit. He had become poor and had the misfortune to lose his sight. One day he sent his son Tobias to Raches in Media to the house of a relative, Gabael, who owed him 10 talents of silver. Just as he was setting out on his journey, a very handsome young man came up to Tobias and offered to accompany him. It was the archangel Raphael, but Tobias didn't know this. One morning, while they were bathing in the Tigris, Tobias was nearly swallowed by an enormous fish. The angel came to his help and said to him,
"Empty this fish and keep its heart and its gall. For if the heart is placed on burning coals, it keeps away evil spirits, and the gall can be used to give sight to those whose eyes have been covered by skin."
During their journey, they stayed at Ecbatana at the house of one of Tobias's relatives named Raguel. Raguel had a daughter, Sarah, and Tobias asked for her hand in marriage. Then Raguel made this confession to him.
My daughter has already married 7 men, and each of them died on the wedding night, killed by an evil spirit. I do not want you to meet the same fate.
But the angel Raphael said to him,
Have no fear to give your daughter to Tobias, for God has chosen her to be his wife. That was why she could not belong to any other man.
Tobias married Sarah, and on the wedding night, remembering his companion's words, burnt the heart of the fish, and its smoke kept away the evil spirit. Some time after his wedding, Tobias came back to his parents' home, accompanied by his wife and the angel Raphael. Then, taking the gall of the fish, he placed it on the eyes of his father, who immediately recovered his sight. While Tobit was giving thanks to God, the angel said to him,
I am the angel Raphael. I came to give you your sight back and to deliver Sarah, your son's wife, from the power of the devil. Now it is time for me to go back to him that sent me. But you must bless the Almighty and publish it abroad what things he has done for you.
A century after the time of Isaiah's prophecies, the armies of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Nineveh, besieged Jerusalem and laid it waste. The temple of God was pillaged, and most of the inhabitants were taken off in captivity to Babylon, amongst them 4 fine, intelligent young men, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. One day, the king was told that Daniel's 3 companions refused to worship the golden statue that had been raised to the god of the Chaldeans. The king was very angry at this news and said,
Bind them and throw them into the furnace.
The furnace was heated to 7 times its normal heat, and the 3 young men were thrown in. But no harm befell them, though the men who had cast them in died from the heat. An angel of the Lord had come down to protect Daniel's companions. Nebuchadnezzar was amazed at what he had seen and said,
Didn't we throw 3 heavily bound men into the flames?
Yes, okay.
I see 4 men who are not bound and who are walking amongst the flames without receiving any hurt. The 4th one has the look of a son of the gods. Take them out of the fire. Let all who speak evil of their God be torn to pieces and their houses destroyed.
Sometime after that, Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's son, gave a great feast to which he invited 1,000 princes. The wine went to his head. He commanded that the sacred goblets plundered from the temple at Jerusalem should be distributed amongst his guests so that they might drink from them. Suddenly, when they were all glorying in their impious action, Belshazzar saw a hand drawing mysterious signs on the wall. The king was frightened and said,
Whoever reads this writing will receive a gold chain and will be ruler over 1/3 of my kingdom.
Daniel was brought in, and he said,
You did not humble your heart, Belshazzar, and you raised yourself up against the Lord by making these people drink out of the vessels that had been consecrated to God. Here are the words and what they mean. Mene, tekel, farsin. Mene means numbered. God has numbered your days and marked the end of your reign. Tekel means weighed. You have been weighed on the scale, and you have been found to be too light. Farsin means divided. Your kingdom will be divided and given to the Medes and the Persians.
That very same night, the king of the Persians invaded Babylon, killed Belshazzar, and Chaldee was joined to Persia. King Darius set 120 province rulers in the kingdom, and above them he placed 3 ministers, one of whom was Daniel. As he was by far the most intelligent of the 3, the other 2 plotted how they could bring about his downfall. And one day they went to the king and said,
May you have long life, King Darius. Your princes and ministers, O king, have made a decree saying that anyone who, during a period of 30 days, addresses prayers to any god or any man save to yourself, will be thrown into the lion's den.
In spite of the decree, Daniel knelt down 3 times a day to pray to God, as had always been his custom. Although it went against his heart to do so, the king ordered Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den. Then he shut himself in his palace. The following morning he hurried to the lion's den and shouted,
Daniel, has the living God that you serve been able to save you from the lions?
God has delivered me, O king, for an angel closed the lions' mouths and they did me no harm.
Your God is the true God. He must be feared, and people must tremble before him. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his dominion will have no end.
On the king's orders, all those who had spoken ill of Daniel were thrown to the lions, who devoured them. For 300 years, the children of Israel lived in peace, until the day that Antiochus, king of Syria, came into Jerusalem, pillaged the city, and profaned the temple of God by erecting a statue to Jupiter in it. On his orders, the law of Moses was overthrown, and the Israelites were compelled to worship the same gods as the Greeks. But a brave man, Mattathias, rose up against this violence, and his son Jude fought a war against the oppressor. At his death, his brothers, Jonathas and Simon, re-established the ancient glory of the people of God. And the Israelites lived in the hope of the coming of the Messiah, which had been promised to them by the prophets.